Well, it's really an honor to have Ambassador Leiter on the program. He's Israel's ambassador to the United States. He knows America well, born here. Ambassador, we're very, very sorry for what took place. The young lady who was murdered, Sarah, was actually an American citizen. And Yaron, of course, an Israeli citizen. And you mentioned that they were going to get married. They were going to get engaged back in Israel. What can you tell us about them?
Good evening, Mark. It's good to be with you.
You too.
Yeah. Yaron came from Germany to Israel many years ago. Went to school, went to the army. He went to university. And Sarah was from Kansas City. They met at the embassy. Yaron was an advisor to one of our senior diplomats. And he was a research assistant, lovely, lovely fellow, very quiet, unassuming, but very serious. And Sarah was sunshine. I mean, she was a smiley gal with beautiful red hair, and every time she came into the embassy, it was like sunshine came through. And it's the story, really, I think, of our relationship. If you kind of do a zoom out, Yaron being Israeli and Sarah being American, falling in love here in the embassy. And he had actually purchased a ring this week, and he planned to take her next week to Israel to meet his family and to propose to her by the Kotel, the Wailing Wall. But they both lost their lives last night in a attack by a gunman screaming, "Free, free Palestine."
You know, Mr. Ambassador, I read the charging document. I'm not going to go through it again. We read it out loud in the first hour. It was horrific, especially what happened to her. It looks like she was actually struggling for her life, but he executed her, and he shot them both from behind. It was tough to read. I read it out loud so the American people know what we're up against. We see this fusion in this country. He was a Marxist between Marxism and Islam and Islamism. We see it in our colleges and universities. We see it all over Europe. We see it actually even in Israel. What do you make of this?
We call this evil nexus of Marxism and Islamism, the Red-Green Alliance. Mm-hmm. And it is on the surface a very strange kind of alliance. We're talking about the extreme left and the extreme right coming together. But extremes find a natural connection, and they're very totalitarian in nature, and they're also very bloody in nature. Marxism was responsible for the murder of 100 million people in the 20th century. And Islamism today is absolutely committed to the death cult that's emanating from Iran in particular, not exclusively, but in particular. And it lends some credence and understanding to Israel's insistence that Iran doesn't get a nuclear bomb, because if they do, they will use it. There's no restraint at all whatsoever with these people. It's a vicious death cult that doesn't really consider how many people they take down with them in their apocalyptic vision of the future.
There's a lot of Jews in America who are concerned about these negotiations just because, not because of the United States or the president, but because of the enemy. And Iran is our enemy, too. They tried to assassinate our president. They've tried to assassinate other officials. They want to put nuclear warheads on ICBMs to reach our country. And they talk about hate, trying to destroy America as well as Israel. I'm just making the point that it is a bit of a risk, no, when agreements are signed with terrorist regimes?
Well, it's not just the Jews of America who are concerned about Iran. This is a threat to Western civilization. They call.
By the way, I don't disagree with it, but they're the ones I talk to, not all of Western civilization. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I travel the country far and wide. Just came back from the the West Coast, where I met with students at UCLA. I visited churches. Americans are concerned of all denominations. This is an evil, maniacal regime that will not hesitate to sprint out nuclear weapons and actually use it. So it must be understood that even before they actually press a button and set off a bomb, imagine all of their proxies, like the Houthis, like Hezbollah, like Hamas, and many others, Islamic Jihad, working under a nuclear umbrella. So that would mean that every conventional war would never end. It would be like Vietnam, unless it ends in the defeat of the West. It just goes on and drags on. Israel can't afford to do that. We're a tiny little country. We can't have a conventional war that goes on for decades. And that means that we have to do everything in our power to prevent Iran from achieving a nuclear bomb. We hope and pray that the negotiations that Steve Witkoff is advancing with the Iranians will include, as he said, quoting the president, that it will ultimately result in complete dismantlement of the infrastructure that they've already built, which is an infrastructure for the full enrichment of uranium, which will allow them to weaponize the uranium and have a delivery system which will threaten the world. So if these negotiations result, we hope and pray. I mean, look, if negotiations can achieve what is the ultimate goal without using kinetic power, it's always better. We have doubts about the Iranians telling the truth, to put it mildly. But if that could be achieved, that's the end game. No enrichment whatsoever. They can have a civilian nuclear program. You don't need enrichment for that. There's 50 countries that have a civilian nuclear program. The fuel is brought in, it's processed, and it's taken out. It's all under international supervision. But anything that involves enrichment and weaponization on Iranian soil is absolutely an impossibility.
Let me ask you last question, because I know you have to go. Britain, France, Canada, they all get together, and there they are threatening Israel with all kinds of sanctions and trade issues and so forth. I guess if you don't get out of Gaza, don't you get kind of sick and tired of other countries telling you whether your people get to live or die or how to fight your wars? I mean, it is incredible to me. I can tell you now, when we decided to take on Al-Qaeda or ISIS, we didn't give a damn what Britain, France, or anybody else had to say. It's got to be frustrating.
Well, it's very frustrating indeed. And I think it needs to be pointed out that when these countries, the President of France, Prime Minister of Great Britain, Starmer, and the Prime Minister of Canada point a finger at Benjamin Netanyahu and point a finger at the State of Israel and say, on the one hand, that we need to do is pull out of Gaza, allow the Hamas to, in effect, win this war. And then France advances a resolution to recognize unilaterally a Palestinian state, in effect, turning October 7th into a victory dance for Hamas. It'll be in effect allowing October 7th to be the Palestinian Liberation Day. Is that really what Macron wants?
Crazy.
So it is when somebody screams free Palestine, which is only half the chant. The other half of the chant is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which means genocide. You're calling for the genocide of the State of Israel. Okay? So it is absolutely imperative to come back to President Macron and say, look, when you advance this blood libel that we are guilty of war crimes, when the ICC and the ICJ condemn our soldiers and our Prime Minister, for crying out loud, war crimes, when we have done more than any country in history to avoid non-combatant casualties, when we have lost soldiers because we don't strafe bomb population centers but send them in on foot, we are dealing with an enemy that nobody has ever had to deal with. 40,000, 50,000 heavily armed, operating out of tunnels that are 450 miles. I mean, it's the width of the state of Pennsylvania. The great expert on urban warfare, John Spencer, has pointed this out, that no country has ever had to deal with the extent of terror tunnels as we have to deal with. And we're doing it with the most concern possible. On this issue of humanitarian funding, it's just important that your listeners understand just one or two statistics. The accusation that we haven't supplied humanitarian funding into Gaza is simply fallacious. It's a blood libel. It's like saying that we use blood in our matzahs for Passover. Okay, we've put in 92,000 trucks,
wow,
semi-trailers, 92,000 semi-trailers with 1.8 million tons of food. The problem that we have is, and the problem that anybody with a moral conscience should have, is that all of this, which is raised tax-exempt to NGOs around the world, is going to Hamas. 40% of it comprises the budget of Hamas. Does the average donor in, St. Paul to an NGO providing food for Gaza really want it to be used by Hamas to raise money for their terror activity? So what we pursued, and we did this for a year and a half, despite the fact that we know that this is going to Hamas and is going to be used to shoot at our soldiers. We did it anyway. Mm-hmm. But now we've achieved a process through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in which the food will be distributed by an American company using American security forces, not the Army. This is a private enterprise. These are all ex-Army people. And the IDF will only be in the periphery. They're going to be able to process 300,000 people at each installation. And the food is going to go directly to the families, not to organizations, not to the Hamas, but directly to families. So beginning May 25th, the beginning next week, we're going to be able to process 1.2 million Arabs living in Gaza. That will expand over the following month until we can reach all of them. And the only difference is, number one, more families will be getting what they need, and number two, Hamas will not be getting what they want. And that's the big difference, which everybody should be supportive of, particularly the European countries that are always so critical of us.
You're a fantastic ambassador. You're a good friend of the family. You've suffered through this war, too. We've discussed that, unfortunately. And it's always an honor to talk to you. It really is. And God bless you, my friend. Be safe out there.
Thank you, Mark. All the best to you and your listeners.
All right, brother. You take care of yourself.